Planning Board, Wednesday, February 6, 2019. A reminder that this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for broadcast and posterity. And if you all would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, first item on the agenda is to discuss a potential animal bylaw with the Agricultural Committee. Is that committee here?
Yes, not everyone's here, but the three of us here, Barbara Batavia, myself, Ken Ruggio, John Buffington. It's actually, Stacy couldn't make it tonight, and hopefully she actually had more of the information that was to be presented to you folks tonight. It's in regards to when issues are coming up in town with this, whether, I think the question I brought to the commission was, are we gonna have to do a zoning bylaw change in the town, which would have to come in front of you folks to go to get it ready to go to a town meeting. What we're also looking for is any feedback that we could get from what you people, have you been getting any complaints in subdivisions per se with animals? That's kind of what we were, and that's kind of like the focus of what we're dealing with right now. Once we get up our regulations set for the town, which we're working on, we've got the town of Rehoboth, we've got Carver, and I'm waiting to get the ones from the town of Dartmouth, which would help when these issues popped up in town, when someone would move into a subdivision, put in 2 or 3 horses, or 25 chickens, or, you know, a cow, or a steer, or what have you. It would give us a basis that we could come and give you some knowledge or recommendations that if we had to do a bylaw change, it would help you. And then the other thing that we were asking, have you had any complaints?
So is the issue that you want to limit the number of cows and chickens I can have in my backyard? Or?
No, it isn't that we want to limit. There's been some issues already in town with too many animals on a 35,000 square foot lot.
Right, so we have a right to farm bylaw, newly enacted.
Right, and where we get into the issue is, where our zoning now is residential / agriculture.
Right.
I technically could run my business out of a subdivision.
Right. So
that could get kind of dicey.
So it sounds like what you're hoping that we'll end up having is that it'll be better defined what's allowed and what isn't in a residential subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have we gotten any feedback, any complaints?
I haven't heard none.
Usually they go to the selectmen, I would
Well, yeah, that's, you know, it's gone to the animal control officer and the selectmen. And Tom, have you heard anything on board?
Only on dogs. I haven't heard about animals in subdivisions yet. But, yeah, I could see where that could present a problem. You know, I mean, it's, from an agricultural perspective, I guess, you know, when you think of that, you think of a farm with not a 35,000 square foot lot with 20 chickens, you know, and a goat. But that would be up to the townspeople to decide.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts?
No, that's what we're working on, and as we're working on it, just keep the correspondence open with the planning board, because again, you're the ones that make the recommendations for town meeting for zoning bylaw changes. So that's why I figured we'd meet with you, you know, informally, just to get touch base and to let you know what we're doing. And if you have any feedback, and we'll do open correspondence as we're doing the process, we could, you know, send you some correspondence so you can overlook it and see if you have any input or not.
So you have samples from Rehoboth and Carver?
Yes, we do.
I think Westport.
So
Not in Westport, Dartmouth, Carver, Rehoboth, and the person that I deal with in the States on vacation right now, he's down in Texas. He won't be back. When's Doug gonna be back? Yeah, middle of February, and I can get more information.
Sir?
I'm Just so you know who I am, Jonathan Gale from 22 Waterford Circle. And my question really is not necessarily about complaints. I know in our development through the Facebook page that we have, we've had some residents sometimes saying, you know, there's a dog loose or a dog has had an accident, things like that, but not so much about other animals. But the question that I would raise more than anything, I guess, is that a lot of times when you have subdivisions being built now, they're built as homeowner associations. And when there's homeowner associations, there's also homeowner association fees. How does that tie into what you might or might not approve? Because then are you telling the homeowner association what they can and can't do, or a potential homeowner association, which means a potential developer?
Well, we already tell them a lot of things that they can and can't do, but.
I know, and that's,
by way of
and that's why I'm asking, I guess, if
By way of our-
the subdivision is designed to be built as an association with association fees, where this would come into play. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, you have an association.
Yes, but,
Are there any limitations
well,
on it?
right now, it's still under development, so we don't,
Oh, that's right,
it's
yeah.
not through us yet, so we don't have any limitations set yet.
Probably one of the oldest subdivisions in town off of Pleasant Street, the park. A number of neighbors are complaining down there because of a very small lot with a lot of livestock on it. And so, I guess would someone like that be grandfathered in? Or there's a lot of things that you'd have to.
You would think there'd be Board of Health issues with a situation like that, because I've been by there and, you know, most of us know what we're talking about here. I'm not on the Board of Health and I don't wanna be on the Board of Health, but I can tell you right now, it looks like a problem to me.
Yeah,
All right.
that's,
And furthermore, I'm gonna add that there have been some problems over the summer with rats due to the amount of people that have chickens now. So there was a rat infestation in North Dayton that the Board of Health is aware of. And they were coming around because of, everybody has chickens. And if you have feed for chickens, you're gonna attract rats. Okay, so there are some issues, and it would be great for you people to do your homework and come back to us, I would think.
It's not just chickens.
It's not just chickens, no.
it's, again, that particular case down in the park, that particular person has come to the agricultural commission requesting signs right to farm. And that's where we're trying to head this off before it becomes a problem.
Well, the signs are already up there.
Yeah,
You made
well,
us all-
that's the
That
town,
was before,
yeah, the town put
that
up.
was before the agricultural commission came into effect.
Oh.
You know, physically
So
came into
it's,
effect.
you know, it's just trying to prevent future problems, so there's, you know, it's cutting.
You know, we had duck problems years ago, right,
Oh,
up on Elm
yeah,
Street,
I
right?
know.
And it cost the town a lot of money
Yeah.
fighting those duck
It's,
problems.
it's to eliminate those situations.
Right. That property's up for sale now, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, it cost the town money to fight for these ducks.
For the ducks?
Well,
To where, far enough?
there were some ducks on the dam that Bud Whalen was trying to protect at one time, but that's another story.
So, I personally would be very open to, entertaining a bylaw that, regulates agricultural usage in a subdivision. And I guess, or rather than make it a subdivision, maybe it would be lot sizes. And I don't know how,
Well, maybe limit the amount of livestock that people can have depending on the size of the
That's
lot.
what I'm trying to do, is to help the animal control officer, because she's already mentioned several instances she's had already. And if we, that's why I wanna get the information from other towns to see, and then we could, as we get it, we can submit it to you folks. So we could, it kind of be a joint effort. If it had to go to town meeting for a zoning bylaw change, everybody's on the same page.
do the other towns, is the enforcement officer, the animal control officer?
Yes.
So maybe you could get some feedback from those animal control officers and find out from them, not just from the
Not so much the
town.
animal, what they call, what is the other title, livestock inspector?
Yeah,
Livestock.
whatever the
Right.
title is, get some feedback from them, find out what works, what doesn't, so that whatever you get from the other towns, if it says X, but the enforcement officer is saying, no, that doesn't work, this does, then we can go to this instead of learn that X doesn't work. And I'm no specialist, certainly in agricultural issues, but I
No,
agree.
but it's gonna be, it's slowly but surely becoming a problem in our town.
understandable.
Somerset had a big blow up, and then they came and boy, they smacked down and everything. And a lot of people had to get rid of a lot of livestock real quick, and they were attached to them. And,
But they have some lots there that are
well,
like
it's ridiculous.
2,000-3,000 square feet, and, I mean, what do
This
you
is
do
it.
with
Yeah,
something like that?
there's only bylaws that are,
Yeah.
You know, God forbid somebody's doing it right, you know, you wanna single people out
No,
because
no,
it's
no,
offensive.
exactly, that's
Right.
what we're trying to go
Yeah.
on, Woody.
That's
Right.
it, you know, we're trying to stop it.
We've gotta remember though that we're a right to farm community, and that was before the town approved that, so I'd be careful about limiting, the number of animals that people can have. The rat situation, which was a serious situation, was never connected to chickens. I have chickens, I've had them for 3 years in March, I've seen one rat, it was at the beginning of it. You gotta keep your food in metal containers. I got wire that goes down, hard wire, the rat goes down a foot into the ground, so I've never had this issue, so I can't put a compost pile, chicken manure right next to my neighbor's, house, so you gotta be careful, so I've got 9 chickens. You're gonna start telling people I only can have 8 or 6, I understand, I got almost an acre and a half, so it's a little different than a subdivision, but you really gotta be careful if you're gonna start telling people. The situation with the ducks, they were going on the road, I mean, that's a hazard.
There's so many ducks, you can't count them all.
And
Yeah.
that was-
Neighbor's property as well.
Right.
There are ducks on top of ducks.
Yes. Well, that's a whole different, I'm not even gonna touch that one.
You know, it is a right
I
to
know
farm,
that
but if
lady
you
very
read the law
well, I
real
had my
closely,
house with her.
commercial, in other words, if you claim farming on your taxes, you have a right to farm. Otherwise, you have to go by bylaws.
Well, it'd be nice if you guys could get back to us.
Oh, we will, I just,
We just don't want something happening that happened in Somerset, which was a big blow up. And we
Well,
wanna be fair to
yeah.
everyone.
Obviously, what you're attempting to do is pass muster with the Attorney General before, because it's in these various communities. So, put your thoughts together and
well, that's, part of me being cautious on this, of being where you're sitting for 10
Yeah.
years. I know the Attorney General, this could be considered snob zoning if we did submit a bylaw, it passed a town meeting, and not necessarily the Attorney General, when he reviewed it, would say that, no, this can't fly. So that's why I wanna get the information from these other towns that have got bylaws. It's really to help the animal inspector, animal control officer, and hopefully to keep some harmony in neighborhoods.
Mhm.
It's not that I'm trying to single anybody out, but, you live in I live by a house in a subdivision, I decided, oh, my daughter wants a horse, okay. And then my younger daughter wants a horse, okay, and my son likes goats, and I get 3 goats, and my wife likes, then now all of a sudden, on a 35,000 square foot lot, this is where it could get dicey.
the standards, right, though, for
There really aren't
amount of
standards
land
out there
that-
yet, not yet.
No, and I think that's part of the reason why we're here.
And we don't want
It's
people
just-
coming in and say, well, your right to farm, we can do anything we want, we can have a rooster crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we don't care if we have 25 neighbors, it's a right to farm. But really, it isn't, if you look at the fine print.
See, Department of Agriculture was smart, they stayed away from it, right?
Well, they,
And it's a health issue, I mean, you have that many animals, now, you've got manure and everything else, it's
Yeah.
gotta go somewhere, gotta be somewhere, and in the summer, you have the flies, you have everything else that comes out of it. So, I mean, it's not just them making noise or getting loose or eating the neighbor's bushes. A lot of it has to do
Yeah.
with the health
Health
issue.
issues.
And so that's the Board of Health too,
Yep.
we're all kind of involved with this. But we don't wanna make the wrong move, that's why we don't wanna make something and then somebody will say, hey, we shouldn't have done that, or snob zoning. So that's
And
what
it's not even the size of the lot, you could have 10 acres of land and
Mhm.
still have a pigsty, so I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter there.
We've seen it.
And I think when you're looking at lot sizes, 35,000 square feet or whatever, I mean, there should be a limitation as to what you can have on that.
And it
I mean,
also-
right to farm or not, I mean, you shouldn't have a dozen chickens and a rooster because you got a next door neighbor. and he's gonna be pissed because that rooster chicken is crowing. You
I
don't
don't
need
think
a
that was
rooster
the
to have
intent
eggs.
of the right to farm.
And some of those subdivisions, there's a house here on this street and a house here, and they're back to back. So, I mean, you're not only bothering neighbors on the side, you've got the one straight behind you too. That's kinda close to be putting a lot of animals. You never know, people come in and they decide, I just want my own food, I wanna raise everything for the family, and there are a lot of people out there like that.
And not only that, if you don't like your next door neighbor, you just get a bunch of new roosters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's,
That ought to fix
that's
it.
part, you
Or
know,
a miniature donkey. A
I'm
miniature
sorry?
donkey,
Oh, yeah, there
you
you
know, they're
go.
real small, but they have big voices.
We have one of them on Bedford Street,
Really?
believe it or not.
So, I assume you're not shooting for this,
No, it's-
spring.
No, we're trying
meeting.
to, I won't have Dartmouths, until, 1st of March. And, like I say, I wanna compare, we've compared Rehoboth to Carver's. Carver's is, it's pretty intense.
It is very
It's not
detailed.
Dayton, it's way more detailed than what Dayton would need at this point in time. Rehoboth is got a pretty good set of bylaws. Dartmouth has kind of been the poster child in the state, because they were the first town that did it, and a lot of other towns have modeled after their right to farm bylaw. And they've got some limitations on what you can do in a subdivision, and, you know,
Well, they have a lot of subdivisions,
right,
so
and
it makes
it was
sense.
deemed fair and equal by the Attorney General after the town voted in a town meeting, so I wanna kinda get the three of them, and hopefully we can come up with something. As we're doing it, we can get the information to you that, where we're thinking we're going with this. And if it, you know, next year, town meeting, we can have another meeting and say that, okay, we make this recommendation, what do you guys think? Should we pursue it as a bylaw and go from there?
I would think in addition to the planning board, whatever other boards.
Well, the Board of Health, we wanna keep in the loop, also the Board of Selectmen, which
Yeah,
we've been in
yeah.
contact with them, and the Animal Control and Livestock Inspector.
Yeah, you want to get buy-in from everybody.
Right.
Really what it boils down to.
Definitely, all the input we can get.
And it's good that you're here to get us to buy in, so.
Oh, boy.
I applaud you, you're doing this, because I can see where it
We've
would be
been around
very
long
helpful.
enough.
The other one that's gonna get a call when somebody's got buy
Well,
20 roosters.
Yeah, it's,
as long as not one of you guys.
Yeah,
all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Alrighty, next item on the agenda is a Form A application for 2590 William Street. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Is that
Good night, everybody.
this?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you open it?
Peter, it's not that whole thing right there?
No, just this part?
Just the top
This
one,
top.
that top one, yeah, that's.
I-
That's helpful.
Okay, we're on William Street.
Okay. This is the house that they've been doing a lot of work on, they went right through it. This is one lot. What we're proposing to do is break the house out, create a lot that has 175 feet of frontage, it's actually got more than that, it's 63, 60 plus 171, 40. So I get a total frontage of 235 feet even, and an area of 36,012 square feet for this house lot. The side setback conforms to the building house requirements. The remainder of the land lacks frontage, so I have a note on the plan saying not buildable under current zoning.
How big is this lot?
This lot is, it only has 101.11 feet of frontage, but it's got 262,503 square feet of area.
And how
And
many
of
acres
it,
is that?
that's about let's see, 26 by 4.
What, 6 acres?
Yeah, about that, yeah, so it doesn't meet like the estate
The
lot.
retreat lot.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That's what I thought.
They were trying to do something with an abutter, but she owes $70,000 in back taxes, so they're trying to clean that up. Otherwise, it's not buildable and it will remain not.
So why bother subdivide this?
Because he wants to sell this house, but he doesn't wanna sell it with all the land, so he wants to keep the land in case she works everything out on her end. That's
Oh,
the direction
So
she's
she has
headed.
frontage over here.
Yeah,
So you put a
Corp-
road in and
Corp-
90 houses and
Well,
off you
no,
go
no,
down.
no,
It's all
because
wetland, so you
it's
can't
all
get
wet, yeah. It meets the upland area, and
Yeah.
it would meet the frontage under the estate lot
Right, but it
rule,
doesn't have
but
the
it doesn't
size.
have this, the acreage.
This is more of a zoning board thing, no?
Well, if they wanted to build on it and not meet that
Yeah,
law,
then
they would
yeah.
have to go to zoning, but they would probably get shot down anyway, because that's carved in stone.
Any concerns with it?
Nah, I don't have any other questions, I mean, Peter, any comments? So would anyone like to make a motion to approve lot 34 of 2490 William Street?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. So you want us to sign the Mylar,
Yeah, whatever.
sign the other folded ones.
Oh, look. Just the whole Dunkin' Board house, the convention that day, park, Title V upgrades. State technology,
I was talking to you the other day when I started, a guy named Peter Phillips.
Oh,
Does that ring a bell?
I've heard the name Dunkin'
Submitted the plans to the planning board on conservation, but they never got.
Yeah, I'll check my notes, I headed back to the office.
Just wanted, my son is
Yep, 6.
It might be his
doing
coffee.
the work for him. And
I want to sign, we want to send it out.
he doesn't know what plans are all set to go and everything. I just thought of this now.
Mr. Chairman, what was the motion? I didn't do that.
Motion to approve. The,
Motion to approve the lot, assessors map 21, lot 34, Form A, application,
So this is for an application?
an application for a plan, leave not A&R, which is approval not to require. Application for endorsement of plan to leave not to require approval. A&R, which abbreviated form in A&R, Form A, A&R.
Thank you.
Either email me or copy.
I think you already signed one of them.
Someone had a long horn bull in their yard.
How long ago was this?
Probably 10 years ago, 13 years ago. I was doing a site inspection. I
Are they
walked
working on
Coming
it?
down.
and I looked over and noticed the hole in the field.
This one's all set.
that's all
This
set.
one needs a couple more.
I'll take it off.
I did quietly, like, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah. How fast can you walk sideways?
It was like, oh my.
Okay, next item on the agenda is ISM Solar Dayton 3 LLC site plan modification approval. Is that, is there a time that we have that scheduled that we have to wait for, or is that just whenever?
No.
Okay.
Why?
Good, thanks.
Evening.
Good evening, everybody. Josh Farkas with Borrego Solar, Dave Albrecht with Borrego Solar, and then Greg Lucini with ISM Solar and the property owner.
So just to update everybody, Borrego is building the site for us. So that they're a EPC, so they're building it, and eventually they're actually gonna buy it. So that's why they're getting involved in the project now.
So just to kind of quick catch up, I know we saw some of the members of the board and the engineer at the site walk the week before last. So basically we've done a little bit of a redesign to the system, and our request was that it was a minor modification. As a group, we kind of agreed on just about everything, but then the new proposed roads to go under the existing arrays, that kind of opened up a couple existing issues about the operations and maintenance on the road itself, and just kind of, opened up some access questions, and then also with respect to one of the abutters to the north, a drainage issue. So one thing that I failed to mention at the prior hearings is that the permit we have has an order of condition, or a condition on it, that we can't start construction on the new project until those very items are addressed, per the fire chief's letter. So a lot of what we're talking about has been, maybe a year and a half old. So anyways, we set up a site visit and tried to work through some of these items. So I think we solved most of the problems, or most of the issues. Dave, in a few moments, will kind of take you through some of the technical details from a stormwater management perspective and show you where the new roads are and how we've adjusted them. But more or less, we're staying to the south of both of the existing arrays, and then we've worked to basically add a measure to handle some of the stormwater that works its way south and east out toward Elm Street, and then affects our New Urban Butters access roads. We've basically created a stormwater feature that will catch and slow some of the water as it works that way. So that's primarily what we'll be going for tonight, and hopefully, if the board sees fit, we'd ask to vote for approval of the minor modification with the existing conditions that are already there. I guess last thing I'll note is that the system owner, NRG Clearway, they sent a representative from their operations and maintenance department. He's the gentleman who's in charge of all their Massachusetts, or New England sites for that matter. He's, I think a couple members of the board could speak to it, but basically he presented their plan for road improvements once the weather breaks in the spring. And then they also addressed the issue of some overgrown vegetation, some just trees that were, branches that were growing out into the roads. Those have already been cleared back and trimmed since we were on site a couple weeks ago. So they seem to be showing that they're following through. And we've made progress on that front with those guys. So that's my intro, and Dave, if you want to kind of show some plans, or we can handle a couple questions now before we do that, if anyone would like.
I actually was the one to attend that meeting there. The only thing that I felt was some of the roads were not that wide, and as the vegetation grows, it's very easy to make it not very accessible without scratching vehicles and things like that. Other than that, they were kind of low. I think they needed some raising with some good-sized stones so that the water can filter through it. Other than that, I didn't see much of anything at all. I think you covered it.
There an annual there must be, so I didn't see it or read it, annual maintenance plan on the road?
There's an existing maintenance plan on the road, and then we would, for the new roads that we would
Okay.
add to it, there would be a maintenance program.
Okay.
But there is already one in place.
There is, and I think the crux of the issue is that there was an ownership change, not on the development side or on the property owner side, but the system owner side. There was a change in ownership, and the gentleman we met with from NRG Clearway, it seemed like he had been maybe hired last summer, and I think he inherited about 50 sites that kind of sort of had been neglected for a while. So I think as this has been brought up in the town of Dayton, I think that group and that individual has been playing a little bit of catch up, and he admitted that to us. Like, hey, I've been here for less than a year, and I'm dealing with this in a couple of towns, and he talked about their how they had some money in the budget for road improvements this year. So I think you probably can speak to. I had a level of confidence in that once we finally got someone on site to meet with us.
I think we also agreed that instead of him jumping on it right now with the weather the way it is and erosion could still continue, he's gonna take care of all of that and a little further down, the road. So, I don't know if you guys talked more about it, you said you did, but
Yeah, we talked a bit more about it, and we also agreed that essentially, once the weather breaks, hopefully our project will be ready to begin construction. Our project is going to be sold to this same group, NRG Clearway, so we talked about maybe combining forces a little bit. If we were gonna show up for construction, we may take on some addition, I don't wanna commit to this for the board, but from a group perspective, we may be ready to go in the spring, and I think we said it would make more sense to potentially push the O&M on their side till after construction, and then maybe we would do some improvements for construction, just to have the most efficient way to handle the roads.
And I'd like to emphasize a point that Josh just made. When I was conceptualizing how to develop what we call Dayton 3, so it's the array over the other side of the transmission lines, I thought about the fact we'd be using the same roads as the project that was already owned by NRG Clearway. So that's why we targeted NRG Clearway to be the ultimate owner of both arrays. So now it's all together in terms of maintenance, one maintenance crew, everything will be seamless. And so they've identified Josh's company, Borrego, that they want to build the new array, Dayton 3, which is fine with us. So now you've got the same guy building the array that's working for the company that owns the original. So if there's any issues, they can work them out between them, and that was your point. It doesn't make sense to go in and do routine maintenance on that road when he's gonna come through with some heavy equipment and do a lot of upgrades and a lot of changes there. So, rather than him spend his budget on that right now, he's gonna come through, he's gonna build this new array, and then after he's done, the maintenance crew takes over for the entire site. And that's the plan that we have together for it.
And I
There's
think
also gonna be the stormwater management plan in place.
Right, we have one for the original
Okay.
one, and there's one that's been designed and proposed, which I know that Peter's
Okay.
reviewed for the new one.
And just to add to that, if by chance we're not ready to construct when the weather breaks, the O&M group would come in and fix the road up immediately. But if we're ready to build as soon as the weather breaks, then we push the O&M back and we do some of that work.
So, are you going to propose to upgrade the operations plan for phase 1? Because I have it here, and the entire part about roads is nothing.
So is that maintenance plan from the original submission with
Phase
special
1,
permit?
from January of 2014.
Okay, so that would have been before that project was installed?
Yeah, so.
Which would have been presented by, or which, I bet you, well, I don't wanna make that.
So I'm
I wouldn't be surprised if that document has
well, my
sort of
point, my
disappeared.
point is that it was not just lacking information from you, but it was lacking this board's ability to foresee the future as far as that road goes. But now we have the past, and now we wanna make sure that the future takes care of the past and maintains it for the future, if I'm not sounding too elliptical.
So that's perfect, that's our strategy as well. We don't wanna have two different owners in there arguing about who's supposed to take care of the road.
Right.
One company, one ownership, one maintenance.
I missed the last walkthrough, but I've been out there several times, and my big issue was the wetland crossing. And you have a plan for that?
On the existing road.
Yeah, on the existing road, you know where the wetland is, and there's supposed to be a culvert. Somebody says there's a pipe, I don't know. I ain't seen no pipe.
There is a pipe there.
But we're gonna do some work to that area, because that area is really gonna overflow every spring.
So that
Right,
was.
and that's a critical area, there's a lot of vegetation in there, there's a lot of little critters in there, salamanders, frogs, and toads, and whatnot. I mean, we saw them there last year, actual breeding in the streams. So, and the water just flows over that road. You're gonna have a lot of equipment in and out, more so than now, you know. So, to me, that's a big issue. fix that one area. You know, and they do it right, I mean, you know, you're gonna make a lot of money there for 20 years, so fix it so it's gonna last for 20 years.
I think we talked about this on the site, and I think a big point that the NRG Clearway representative made was that when O&M is not performed regularly, things really wear down over time, and it wasn't performed regularly for a while.
It really wasn't made well in the first place.
So, you know what, you could totally be right about that.
Yeah, I
I
am
wasn't
right.
there for it, you are.
There should be two culverts
Yeah.
underneath. They could be clogged. That'll have to be figured out.
Yeah, there was, like, last year, we were up there several times, and it was clogged. I mean, we were up there with Conservation, there was a group of us. Tom, I think you were there.
Probably.
Bill Finette was there. I actually took some pictures, there's like little pollywogs laying eggs in the road. Okay, the vehicles are gonna, you know, I'm not here to protect every little pollywog, but, you know, I would like to. I would like to. You know, why not? You know?
So I guess the question I would ask is, what's the most appropriate way to handle that? I mean, I hope,
I would-
I hope we're showing that we're reasonable and wanting to do whatever it takes to help here, but like I see a little bit of a division between, you know, permit one on the existing project versus new permit, which, you know, we're
I say fix the
modifying.
road if you wanna get back there.
Can I suggest something?
Please.
I think part of that road ending up in the condition that it was after construction, that there were, you know, environmental wetlands constraints on the initial construction of that road and everything. So I think before they can commit to do anything, they have to coordinate any improvements to that road with the Conservation Commission. And if they have to provide some mitigation or extra culverts, I mean, the trick there is you wanna provide the access, but you wanna maintain the wetland values, but also the hydraulic flows and regime, so you don't, you know, dry out a wetland or something like that.
Right.
So that has to be coordinated with the Conservation Commission.
That's way beyond my scope.
Well, you have to look at the notice of intent and make sure that anything that you propose to do to make sure that the road works fits within that notice.
Correct.
And if it doesn't, or the order of conditions, I should say, and if it doesn't, you'll have to go before the conservation.
So we are set to go to the conservation, I think it's a week from tomorrow. I think they, right, did they meet on, okay, so yeah, a week from tonight maybe?
'Cause I don't think there's a better
So-
plot to put solar. I mean, you've got a great
Yeah.
spot there.
Yeah.
It's not an eyesore for nobody.
That's right.
The only guy that's bothering is Mr. Carr, and I know you're gonna take good care of him this time around. Right?
So we'll be going in front of Conservation Commission. We talked to Charlie Mello a couple times. He's got copies of these plans, and we've got our first informal meeting with them scheduled for next week, and then we'll see what the next steps come from that.
But it really seems like the solution's pretty straightforward. There's existing culverts, we gotta make sure they're functional. And the road needs to be raised with some larger chunky rocks, and we need to do it to bring the construction equipment in anyway. With those two changes, it should solve the problems. It should allow the water to flow and keep the critters off the top of the road.
And our safety vehicles, if it need
That's
be,
right.
you know, fire trucks are big, they need to get down there too.
Right.
Right,
So we're definitely committed to that.
right.
To even physically be able to start our construction, to bring these big trucks in there, so.
I'm all for it.
I'd like to see the updated plan sets.
Okay, so, again, my name is Dave Albrecht, I'm a civil engineer at Borrego. And I first wanted to just present you an aerial, because I don't think we had done this 2 meetings ago. I think somebody had asked for a plan to be included in the plan set that showed all 3 systems. This isn't in the plan set, we do have a 2D version of this in the plan set, but this is when this particular system was under construction, showing access off of Elm Street, coming around where the utility poles are and the equipment are, and just kind of just running through the site to get to here. And then we're gonna, as you had approved before, we have a road down here that crosses into where the new system, where Wetland 3 is located. And we're proposing to put a road in this cleared area around the outside. And I'll just go right to that particular sheet that I think we've spoken about the rest of the project and the site itself in an earlier hearing. So this is, again, Elm Street is here, north is up. This is the existing road that comes through. It goes through this first system, comes over to here, and we're proposing, as you all approved, a road south of this system. But really, we want to also add a road to the south of this system so that when we're under construction and operations and maintenance of the very westerly system, we don't have to go through this system. And that's also for emergency management personnel and staff and fire trucks and so on. To have to go through here, open up a gate, go through, open up a gate, go through, doesn't make a whole lot of sense at the end of the day. So we've added, it's about a quarter acre of gravel road through here, matches the existing road. It does have, it varies in width to allow for a semi-trailer truck to get through, which also allows the standard pumper truck to get through. And that's, so this is a blow up of that. The yellow is the gravel road. And because the gravel road is gonna have, it's not impervious, but it's closer to pavement than it is to a meadow or a grass area, we've offset the runoff due to that with an infiltration basin here and an infiltration / sedimentation basin in this location. We have most of this runoff comes this way, and then there's some water that goes that way. And we provided some hydrocat analysis to Peter on that. This, there's gonna be some grading in this particular area here for the road because there's I don't know how far you all walked last time.
It's like a little valley there.
There's a little valley, but you
Yeah.
kinda, this is a hunk of ledge right here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kinda steep, so this is a little, we're filling this area here to maintain a maximum of a 10% grade in the road. And when we did that, that allows us to put in a swale, so that any water that sheets off the road will go into a swale all the way down to here and comes into this basin, and we extended the basin, so it almost becomes this swale in this location. So really, this whole part of the road here gets treated by some kind of stormwater management feature. And then we did the same thing here, the water that runs this way, we're gonna construct a small little swale just outside the fence, gonna put in a small culvert, and then into this little area right here where we're just gonna excavate down 2 feet. And it's gonna sort of act, both of these will act as, I'll call, for lack of a better term, a level spreader, where the water will rise up, and then in this location, I believe it's 100 feet, water will, over in a 100-year storm, will kind of flow over on a very level area, level spreader.
Those numbers work for you?
So that's really the big change here, is the road and then the additional work associated with the stormwater, getting the runoff around and offsetting the gravel. A plan similar to this, also colored up, was sent to Charlie Mello, I think it was last week, to just show him what road work is within the 100-foot buffer zone that didn't exist before as part of the order of conditions, and also the stormwater management work and how much sort of square footage of that. I know there's no threshold that tells the Conservation Commission whether we need an amended order of conditions, or they can just say, well, this is sort of a field change. We hope to have that discussion next Wednesday. So Peter was so kind to, since he just received this yesterday, to give me a call this morning, and he had a couple of, and I'm sure you'll talk about it, there was a couple of technical things, a couple of details of this for construction that we need to provide, and I was hoping that after we discuss those, we can answer any questions you have.
Okay, David's correct, I did receive the plans yesterday, and I spent some time looking them over, and, I mean, I think, based on what we saw out in the field, this is a, sensible, way to address this, and that, and I like the design, but there's still a number of things that need to be addressed, and there's some, discrepancies in the plan shown, there's things like, they're really not showing the spillways or the outlet structures on this plan, and they don't have enough freeboard in some places on this design, but that may be part of the spillway system that I didn't appreciate because it wasn't shown on the plans yet. And so I think there are, I mean, I think the plan can work, I think, but it needs, you know, more refinement and more information provided on it. And the things, you know, like, some of the other things would be like, the hydraulic analysis they presented really didn't take into account the impact of the gravel road on the increase in flow. So those are the things that they're gonna need to address before I can fully sign off on this plan. And I like the design, I see that they're providing enough clearance for trucks to get around, and certainly it'll be sufficient for a fire truck. But that's all I can say at this point.
So we're prepared to add all that information and work with Peter sort of aside, to resolve a little. To your question earlier, Peter, when we talked about, we hadn't accommodated the gravel in there, but I did check and it is in there. The existing road that runs through the site, that gravel road is outside of the two subcatchments that we created, the one here and the larger one here. But the road is shown in there, the gravel road, the quarter acre or so.
Okay.
It is accommodated in our hydrocat analysis.
Okay, I did have limited time to look this up, so.
I know, and I really do
Yeah.
appreciate you not taking the time to look at it, but, no, it was
Have you applied, I haven't seen this, but maybe you did, stormwater permit through the Board of Health?
I don't believe we have, no, we haven't, I don't know what was.
Okay, you'd wanna contact Board of Health, Todd Pilling,
Okay.
for the process on that one.
Yeah, I don't know what was done prior with the other project. It doesn't look like there was any accommodation made whatsoever for any stormwater management for this project or this one, which I was sort of like really surprised that there was anything.
There, I'm sure there was. We went
I
through
didn't know
stormwater. I paid a pretty big bill for it, I remember. That was an expensive calculation.
There's a stormwater management and land disturbance permit for a solar generating facility, so,
So there is one, so
That's
it
for
would
the
be a
first one, right?
modification to that.
yeah, for the first one. That
Phase
was not
one.
here, I just got the cover page, but.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure it was done.
Yeah, so we need a phase two.
Yeah.
Get ready to pay for another one.
Hope not. Actually, I take that back, I paid for one for the new array as well. So I know we've got.
Maybe you did, I'll
Yeah.
check with
Yeah.
Todd over there.
Thank you.
So the one additional item that was this, I know I was double booked that day, but the other item discussed was the neighbor, Mr. Carr, and his concern about runoff from, and I'll use the aerial, it's probably a little clearer. That the two driveways you can see are very close together, and there's a stone wall between the two of them that comes very close to the edge of Elm Street. This area up here was cleared, and that's where sort of the roadway was improved. And there's also, that's where the customer-owned and utility poles with equipment on top are located on the right side as you drive in. There's a big hunk of exposed ledge right in this location. It was amazing that there were some new trees planted there. I was really surprised that there was enough depth for them to plant it and to grow. But what we want to do, and we showed on the plans, is to help offset any of the water that's coming off of that area, because it really is a sort of a high point, maybe right where the poles are at, and that water's coming down the road, and it's crossing around the stone wall.
Yeah, come right on.
Stone wall. So what we want to do is in this area right here, before the first pole. So
Can you see okay? Can you see the plan okay? Thank you.
So when you drive in, you get to the gate that's there, and and you kind of rise up a little bit, and over to the right, there's an open area before you get to the first pole. We want to excavate in that area and sort of grade that area so any runoff goes to that low spot.
It's right inside the gate.
It'll be right inside the gate to the right, just to offset a little bit of water.
Right there is where the brook crosses. My guy-
Behind there, it goes behind where the poles are, right?
Yeah, the brook is in back of the pole, that's where it goes under my guy,
Right,
back there. The water I'm getting is what's coming out the gate.
right.
That's the main part.
Yeah, we wanna, right on the other side of the gate, we wanna put something there, a
Yeah,
little
this
depressed
is
area.
you need the water that comes up.
Right.
And this towards the road. That's where it's coming down and coming right around onto my driveway.
Right, so we wanna
Maybe.
build,
The back house.
we wanna construct a smaller depressed area to kind of hold that water. Let it percolate in the ground, maybe maybe the bedrock is deeper in that location.
There's 3 culverts on that road now.
Mhm.
The first one's right after you go around the shop bend, after you come off from Elm Street,
Right,
you come around, it's right in there.
right.
Next one is up to the first section here,
I think
Yeah,
there's
right
one
there.
here and there's another one here.
because the first section, that first section of wetland, just before that first field,
This one?
the water runs from north to south,
Mhm.
okay? The way it is right now, we asked for a couple of 10-inch pipes possibly, did we not? Because it's blocking the water and it's backing it up onto my back property more than what it really was before.
Right.
Then the second section,
I think that's right here.
beyond the first field, right here,
Okay,
right, that water runs from south to north.
yeah, I remember seeing this culvert, I did not,
Okay, 'cause
I know I saw this culvert as
I
well.
explained it to the boys here.
Mhm.
That's where, whatever Dayton wants to call the brook that feeds into the Muddy Cove now, either Muddy Cove or Sally Richmond Brook. I think you read that?
Yeah.
That's where it's at. And that feeds down into the Dayton Dam.
Mhm. So
So
as part of,
we need pipes up there too. Because the side, when you're walking up there, if you look at the left, the water's right up to the road.
right,
It was when we were up there. The other side is down. It's not crossing.
I did, when I was there, and that was prior to the last meeting that I attended with you all, is I did see water flowing through the culvert. You could
Well,
visibly see it
it may
flowing.
not really be a culvert, because it used to be nothing but farmlands,
Mhm.
and the only culverts they ever had was stone.
I think we put in new
I
culverts.
think it's
Am I
pretty
right,
sure it's a
Pete?
pipe.
No, I think there's some new culverts that were put in.
Because they put stones, they put flat ones on top, and that was a culvert.
That was what was there, sure.
Yeah.
When we bought the land, that's exactly what
That's
it was.
exactly what was there.
Right, but we upgraded that to put in a pipe
They
associated.
did put a pipe in up there?
Yes,
Yeah.
But-
Now, we do need to, as part of the maintenance of the road, we need to
The
be
pipe could be
sure,
clogged.
we need to be sure, especially
That's the
this one,
disadvantage of,
that because it flows from north to south, if it's clogged, then it's gonna
and
back up.
that's why I need
So we
regular
just need to
maintenance to make
maintain-
sure it doesn't.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not clogged.
But didn't we see backup, right, wasn't it higher on one side?
Oh, yeah, that's up,
So it wasn't like an even
up between the
flow.
first and second field.
Right.
Right.
It was higher
So that's
than
part
one
of-
side
So
than the
that
other.
has to,
That's part of the O and M that Energy Clearway will
And you can
take
sit
care
there,
of.
you can see a little water coming through it, because the pipes aren't that big. And Woody and I was talking, that maybe a couple of 10-inch pipes would be better under there, so the flow will
Mhm.
differently.
But as I mentioned, they have to coordinate, if they make any improvements like that, that has to be coordinated with
Whatever.
the
Yeah, we'll,
Conservation Commission.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll make
whatever
sure to discuss that with them
conservation
next week.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Ron, I think two things. One is, the combination of O and M on what's currently there and the additional stormwater management, approach we're taking to do a little bit more.
We discussed a lot.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, the combination of those two things.
And we can always get together again and look it
Yep.
over ourselves, you know.
And you've been totally reasonable. I mean, I think we said it, and for any others, that there always has been water
Okay.
flowing toward your driveway. There
Always
always
had
will
some
be.
water coming out of there,
but,
but it was nothing but
Yeah.
a tractor
Mhm.
entrance.
Right.
Old farm entrance, that's all it was, with two things.
Sure.
There was always some water coming out of there, but once they dug that out and put the stone in, it really escalated.
Mhm.
It really escalated, and it's slowly washing my driveway down. I never asked them to fix my driveway, I'll fix my own driveway. Just take care of the water.
I had shared with Peter, and I think, Gary, you got a copy of it as well, is that we all know that in the last 18 months, 2 years, we've seen a lot more rainfall than we ever had seen before. And so I just took a look at sort of, what is Dayton seeing in the last year? And your average rainfall is somewhere between 48 and 50 inches a year. Last year you saw 66 inches. And I've been before some other towns where they've noticed that, generally they have a real problem with the fact that there's been so much rain and the water is the ground is saturated and you get another storm and then, so I think that's also exacerbated your problem. And, you know, we're hoping that by doing this little depressed area and making sure that the road is, as much as possible, can be graded towards that, you know, anything that's up gradient, obviously, water's not gonna flow uphill. We'll get as much water as we can to that, and I think it's gonna be, you know, one of our civil engineers will be out in the field when that's being constructed to make sure that the road, maybe the road gets a little more gravel and is sort of directed towards this. Maybe there's a swale that runs between the edge of the road and the poles, you know, just a little small swale that just gets as much water into there as possible. So that's our intent, and I'm hoping that that helps alleviate your problem.
Okay, I will say, that if we have the right kind of summer, that brook will dry up from
Right.
July 4th to September.
Sure.
It normally does. Not all the time, but it's a normal thing.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie about that.
Oh, no, we
Yeah. It's the winter, mainly the winter time when you're getting all the water.
right.
And that first section of wetlands, there's a couple of springs in there, so it's feeding from springs.
Right.
And there's springs on the other side, on my side also, that feeds it, so.
Then we have the ground that freezes, and then we get
I can
foot of
show you, I
snow,
can take
and
it.
then we
No,
get
we were
rain.
there, we were actually there on maybe the perfect day to see what was going on, cause everything was frozen, so you can tell where the water had been and where it was going, and
But I'm just trying to work with these.
we're completely committed to it, and it's actually been great speaking with you. Sometimes these situations are, I don't have someone that is willing to speak with me, they'll only speak at the board meeting, so I appreciate that.
That's all I've
Big
ever
time.
asked for.
Yep.
I've asked, just come to me and ask me, you know, I haven't lived there all my life for nothing.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't here last meeting, but due to a family death, but, has this been determined yet as a minor?
We have not voted on whether it's a
Nothing's
minor or
happened
major.
yet,
No, we have not, so we need to take two votes potentially, one to vote on whether it is a minor or a major modification, and the second vote would be to approve the modifications. Now, considering that Peter received the plans for this modification yesterday, and that there are many questions, although I know you want us to vote on it tonight, I think that waiting another couple of weeks to get Peter's full comments and to get those taken care of by the next meeting would make a lot more sense, and we don't have to cross our fingers that it comes out right on the plans. We can see that it's right and then vote on it accordingly. So, unless someone has a different opinion and would like to make a motion to,
Well, my opinion, I think we could vote it as a minor or major or whatever, but I wouldn't vote on the finalized plan.
okay, so would anyone like a,
Could we make a motion and stipulate that it will be subject to Peter's review of the plans?
well, then we're back here talking about those plans, and if there's a discrepancy of who's right, who's wrong, or if things lag and take time, if we don't vote on it, they have a lot of reason to get it right before we vote. If we do vote on it and then time marches on, they don't really have you know, they already have their approval. Now, not to say that you wouldn't, but again, carrots and sticks.
Right, well, if I could, I believe at not the last meeting that I attended, but the first meeting I attended with you all, you did all vote that this was a minor modification.
I thought, I wanted to say that too, but I didn't wanna.
I don't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me.
It never got voted, as far as I know, and that's what,
When we were in the selectmen's meeting room. That's my recollection, that you voted and that we were gonna go through GZA and Peter.
No, it's okay.
But I would,
We
you
can
know,
check
I'll vote
after
it
the
again.
fact. We can vote it again.
Yeah, I'll make the
I'll make a
motion.
motion, since I was the one walking, you know, that went for I'll make a motion to make it a minor modification.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I guess the other question is to, whether or not the board will be willing to condition and approve it tonight with the conditions that we, and I'm confident, and I think, I won't speak for Peter, but I think we're confident that we can resolve all these things, within the next 2 weeks and hopefully not have to have another meeting if it's approved tonight. would a condition be that all this needs to be, we need to satisfy Peter prior to applying for a building permit? So there's no,
You still got the stick.
You would still have to submit for your stormwater permit.
and yeah, and maybe that's also a
Okay.
condition would be to do that.
Conservation Commission.
Peter, you comfortable with that?
I'm not comfortable with that.
Me either.
No, I can wait 2 more weeks.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to continue the hearing for 2 weeks?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 2 weeks.
No second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank
What
you.
is that date, really quick, just so I can.
Today's the sixth, so the 20th.
Twentieth.
Yeah, hearing next week, too, right?
And we'll be able to report back on what
It's not
Then you
here.
can talk to
we had with
Peter
the
and
Conservation Commission too.
fix the road.
That one, join it
Make
on
Mr.
calendar,
Carr
is that
happy.
Brook Street,
Michael
on-
Canahan.
So that must be the 20th, right?
And we're all happy.
I don't see any Michaels
It's mainly
here.
out there by the
Okay,
road.
when is the next meeting?
The 20th.
Just so they know where the other brook are,
20th?
which way they go.
So next item on the agenda is to discuss a potential marijuana cultivation location with Michael Canahan.
I do not see that gentleman here, he may be running a few minutes late.
So we can table that and move on to the next one. The next item on the agenda is to discuss, review and act on a chapter land release recommendation for 30 Brook Street, map 16, lot 28. No one from the neighborhood came, so I can't bring my sewage plant recommendation to the.
Well,
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
I guess they were pretty, excuse me, pretty confident that the town didn't want this since they already spent all the money in advance for engineering and so forth, but I believe the access road is what, 25 feet or 20
Yeah.
feet? So we can't even make a
Where
retreat.
is Zero Brook Street?
It's with
That's
the
the
solar.
solar,
That's the
solar on the corner of Pine.
Oh,
Just approved. So we can't even make a retreat lot out of it or do anything with it, it looks like. So,
Yeah, so,
I don't see a need for us to, or any reason why we would want it. Unless we buy it and make a solar farm on it.
yeah, right. All the engineering's already in. But it's probably worth a lot more now that it has a solar system
Yeah.
approved. So, do we have to take a vote?
You just have to make a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, recommend whether to waive their right of first refusal.
Planning board.
So they need the planning board's recommendation whether to buy the property
Right.
or waive the right of first refusal.
So would anyone like to make a motion to waive the town's, recommend to waive the right to purchase?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Next item on the agenda, planning board fee schedule. So Kerry,
Yes.
how much do you wanna raise them?
Well, I think I wasn't really looking, well,
So we have,
as we
this is the
discussed,
current fee schedule,
this is our current fee schedule.
and this is the other town's fee
Yes,
schedule.
so I went through, and as you can see, we're pretty much in line with the surrounding town, with the exception of Rehoboth.
Rehoboth's a little high.
Yeah,
Pricey to build a new one?
Rehoboth is pretty pricey. So it looks like we're pretty in line, even though we haven't updated our fee schedules at least at a minimum since 2011, from what I've been able to
Holy cow,
gather.
for a Form A.
Yeah.
We were expensive there.
I do think that the Form, for example, like the Form A that they have, I'm suspecting that Rehoboth probably has their engineer look at that, and that's why it's so high.
Whereas we have the funds, the chapter 53 account.
We have a 53G account,
Yeah,
but we
G.
don't, at least the process that we've been following, we haven't been doing, if Peter's here, he takes a quick look at it.
Right.
But we haven't really done
And you have to move on Form As fairly quickly, too.
Right, Form As are generally, 48-hour requirement to be placed on the agenda. You guys take a look at it, and it's pretty standard too. Even
Yeah.
though you approve a Form A, it doesn't mean it's a buildable lot. It doesn't
Right.
mean, it means they can subdivide it
Yeah,
with
no
the
kidding,
proper
that's
frontage,
crazy.
but that doesn't mean that they can slap a house up. They still
Right.
have other hoops to go through.
Yeah.
So that's my suspicion on that, because I have read in some of their subdivision rules and regs or their procedures manuals that they have, that they do have their town engineer review it, so they have much more hoops to go through,
Okay.
so that would say they have more charges.
Uh-huh.
So that's just it looks like we're pretty in line from surrounding communities.
So should we go from, for the Form A, 50 plus 100 to 100 plus 100?
100, and that was gonna be my suggestion, if you guys were looking to, thinking of increasing, cause it's been so long.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I know Peter and I haven't had a chance to really talk, and I did just send this to him, this week, Peter? I think within the past couple days, I sent this to
It was a
email,
little while,
but,
I did get a chance to look it over.
I don't know, project review fees, as you can see, were very limited on what I've been able to get. Some towns, as you can see, it's just as determined by the engineer, so basically they just submit it, and then the engineer would send back their scope of services, like Peter would do, and that's how it's determined. Or,
I think actually in practice, most of the time, I submit a proposal and that's what's accepted.
exactly, and that's what I've
we're not
noticed.
really following these, are these the
Which-
two engineering fees of the bottom three?
So, the ones that you see below under Dayton, that's actually what was always on our planning board fee schedule. But I also noticed that when we send plans to you, you come back with your scope of services, with a contract, with your estimated amount. So I wasn't sure where that, I didn't know if maybe this was more of an estimated to let the applicant know.
Oh, right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So that at least they have an idea of what they're looking at.
No one's complained.
Exactly.
And I think
No one's
I'm
complained.
reasonable too.
And I think that's more of what I was looking for you to, is this a reasonable estimate? And maybe what I should be putting on our fee schedule is, this is an estimated amount. Scope of services will be presented at the time the application is submitted, or some kind of language
Or you
to
could
that
just make it
point.
as determined by the engineer.
And that was my other question, or can we do it that way?
That would make-
Propose that
Yeah,
way?
instead you have the project review with an asterisk,
Yeah,
and then at the bottom it has a bunch of words.
yep,
You just
says,
say, as determined by the engineer's proposal.
yeah, and
That's
if you
subsequent.
do, notice at the bottom, like under the project review, they all have a sign, and at the bottom it says, this is an initial fee.
Those
The
are
applicant
words
shall
out,
be
yeah.
required to replenish when it gets too low, or if, there's
Right.
additional fees.
Yeah, it
I'd
doesn't
like
say
to
how
also
many hearings
note-
that includes, or,
Right, but I'd like to also note that this project review fee doesn't also include the legal fees. So for example, if you have a legal opinion that needs to be written
Right.
up, or legal review, that's not included in these review fees. And the applicant gets charged for that as well.
Right.
So,
So all of this stuff, all these
All-
numbers and stuff is basically a bunch of BS. In reality, it may have been close
could
to
be.
accurate back when it was formulated,
correct.
but the reality is
So-
that we'd be better off changing the whole fee schedule to reflect the reality
Yeah,
of twenty
and
nineteen.
that was kind of where I was going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't expect you to come up with a solution tonight, just bringing it to your attention. I'm gonna do some more research on how I can do it. I also have to look through the rules and regs as to see if that's some kind of change, and if that would require a public hearing, because you're changing your fees. But I don't know if that falls within the scope of changing your fees, cause that's not really
We already changed the fees,
Well,
kinda. I mean,
I think we might just have to say it like 3 weeks in a row.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen
right,
doing
so that's
certain
some more
things.
research that I do
yeah,
have to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
So there's still some stuff I still have to work on.
right.
So I'm not ready for anyone to act on, but just something to think about and, bring to your attention.
At least we discovered it's not too far out of whack.
No,
You
it's
thought it
not.
was.
I
You could-
thought it, well,
Yeah, it's
I
terrible.
was thinking it was only because it had been so long since they've been touched upon or reviewed.
Maybe all these other towns haven't touched upon it in
And
years.
that's-
Yeah, there you go.
That could be as well.
Rehoboth has, Rehoboth
Yes,
Rehoboth
no
has,
kidding.
yes, they're right on top of it, yeah.
apparently.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a lot, but I think they also have an engineer on, do they have an engineer on staff, I think? Or they
Well,
have a
we
town
have
planner, which
consulted,
maybe?
if I may, we have consulted for them in the past,
Oh, you
but
have?
not recently, so I don't know if that's changed.
Okay,
But I also know, so,
or I think they might have a town planner on staff, and I think that's a little bit different as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe that's why it's so much higher, and the whole bit.
They can afford
So,
it.
yep, so that's
Controlling
where we
growth.
stand on
All
that.
right,
Yeah,
well, let's table that for now.
okay.
So are we,
Too expensive.
are we better off buying a leasing a copier?
Well, I did break down the numbers for you. If you look on, I did it two-sided. So there was the original proposal of purchasing for the 8,000, and then I did break down the service agreement for 1 year, for about $1,050 for 1 year. And then,
So about a 10 grand initial hit.
yes,
Right,
for
and
a 36-month lease. And then you also have to factor in the $87 per month
Right.
service contract, same
Now,
amount, $1,050.
The service needs to be purchased whether we're leasing or buying.
Right.
Well, you're gonna wanna have that in case anything goes wrong with the printer, or, cause it's one of those big, copier, plan copiers.
Put it.
Well, I'm working in the office and I have been able to downsize, so I'll be able to knock out some,
Okay.
file cabinets.
Well, obviously, if you're gonna get this printer and it's also a
Location
scanner,
is
you
gonna
can
be key
scan it
too.
and Scan all those plans and get rid of the boxes that they're sitting in
Oh,
now.
that would be awesome. Yes. Yes, that's one of my goals as well.
So it seems to me that if we still have to pay for the service, the service of
Yeah.
$87.50 a month,
Let's
we may as
buy
well buy it.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why would you lease it for 60 months for 12 grand plus?
Yeah. And just so you know, so that we at least could get it within I did give, Mallory a memo just saying that we are in discussion for this. And our special article was asking for 10,000 for the purchase or a lease, depending on what you wanted to do. Of course, I would have to, if you wanted to lease, I would have to go back and amend that to her. So she is aware of the cost on that right now. And she's working with the Board of Selectmen right now on that. So the original number that I've given her, would be able to, if we were to purchase, the original number that was presented is still okay with the service,
Okay,
that's in
so
there.
you wouldn't have to.
So that's, I wouldn't have to ask for more monies, the only
Gotcha.
thing I would need is, for the supplies, which I don't expect really to run off a lot of plans.
No.
Is there any warranty at all with these things?
They come with warranties,
For how long?
standard warranties. I'm gonna go back to her and ask her all that, but she had given me this big pamphlet here, and I had gone through most of it. And this is actually under the state contract, so it's
You
one
know,
of
the
the state
lifespan,
contracts.
man, what's the lifespan of these things?
The lifespan, she had, she asked me that now. We talked about that last time.
It depends
I
on how
don't
much it gets
remember.
used.
Right.
Yeah, we
You can
talked
buy a
about it
brand-
last time, I'll double check my minutes, because we did talk about it last time and I forget off the top of
Well,
my
that's
head.
how I buy stuff.
But, I will definitely
Yeah.
ask her.
Also see if, what an extended warranty would cost,
Okay,
if you haven't already.
I can.
Although,
Warranty.
But then you
Hey,
guess
sometimes
yourself.
they're,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you're basically placing a bet.
yeah,
For instance, these group homes that my company has, we buy dishwashers and we always get the extended warranty, because you got employees, not homeowners, running
Right.
dishwashers and,
Right.
and all, so then it makes sense. In this case, not every Tom, Dick and Harry is running
It's gonna
down to
be
your
using it.
scanner, it's gonna be you. So
Right.
it may not make sense to get
right,
She's
the
gonna become very popular.
extended warranty.
right.
Yeah,
You're gonna
I
become
can
very
ask her.
popular, Carrie, when you get this.
I know I
thinking the
am,
same
I've
thing, so what if
already, I've
other
already
departments
had
are gonna-
some people's eyes kinda,
So do we have to set a fee schedule for,
we can,
we should, if we're gonna make
I-
copies for other people, we're gonna charge them.
I think
Yeah.
we should.
Yeah.
I
Ain't
guess,
no
Because
law.
running those copies off are very expensive.
yeah, ask
They can be
ask the
expensive.
folks, the
What an
vendor,
estimated-
what an estimated cost per sheet is.
Well, what you should,
Then we'll triple it.
Peter, can I suggest that she asks if she has any local suppliers that would supply, will they or other companies supply the toners and other reusable, so that you can get an estimate of the cost to run this, if you're running, 1,000 prints a month or 5,000 prints a month or whatever.
Right.
From local suppliers.
Yeah.
Those
Or if
toners
they
cost a
supply
lot
it.
of money.
Oh, yes, they do.
That what?
The ink,
Toners?
Very,
Yeah.
very,
Big
cause she
bucks.
lists that there too, the 179
right.
per
So,
color.
if other departments need to use our thing, they need to buy their own toners.
Yeah,
We're not gonna-
Swing with you.
yeah.
My thing
You
is,
don't wanna
does
be
this
pulling
company,
toners in and out, so.
No.
does this
check.
company have supplies?
Yes,
That they
Yeah.
do
Yes.
have that?
yes.
If you buy the supplies from them rather than, will they do anything for you?
Will they,
Well,
well,
that's what
this,
the service is,
Well,
$87.50 a month, they come and they look at it, and they
yes.
say, you need
But
new
the-
toner,
The
you put it in.
cost that they're giving us is under the state contract. So, under the state contract for municipalities
okay.
is,
Should be
it's,
cheaper.
it's the cheapest that you can get in our area
Okay.
for a municipality.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
And it also gets it so that we don't have to go out to bid. So we don't have to go out to bid, and get all
Yeah,
these
right.
quotes and that
Yeah.
type of thing. When you go under the state contract,
Right.
you can get it from this one person and it's pretty much guaranteed. That's the lowest
The
place,
lowest,
the
right.
lowest of the thing. And it's a contract, so they're held to that. She actually has provided the copier that's provided upstairs. So she's, for where the copy room is upstairs. They got a new one, I think, within the last year. So she's the one that provided that one up there, under the state contract. So that's where they're doing. We're not looking, the only thing I'm looking to do, is more or less for the other departments, is not so much run off copies for them, but to be able to put it on a PDF
Scan it,
and scan it and send it to them.
right.
Cause just like me, they don't want all that paper.
No.
They don't want these huge plans, but the accessibility to be able to scan and have it on their computer and call it up on their computer when someone calls, or if they're doing research or something, that's what they want. And that's the more
So
things
this
that
has to
their
go before
eyes.
town meeting?
It'll have to go as a special article,
Yeah. I'm
So-
sure we can sell it.
yeah. And, we are gonna say, with the help of, it'll help aid the building department,
Yeah,
it'll
it'll be
help
for the
aid the
whole-
assessor's office.
Not just for the planning department, it's for
Right,
everybody.
the Board of
For the
Health,
town.
the Stormwater,
Right.
Committee,
Then we lock it up.
yeah, but it will be, yes. And actually, she did mention that, there can also be a keypad on there, so that you have to have a special code in order to use it. So not just, like you said, Joe Schmo come off the street and be able to start playing with it.
Right.
They have to have a special code on it. So if we have major concerns about that, we can have that installed as well. So, but I will definitely ask her about these other questions
All right.
on those. And I think maybe what we can ask her is maybe at the end of the the service, ask how their extended warranties work.
And ask
Maybe when it
about
starts getting
trade-in.
at the end, or trade-in, that
I
too.
mean, if every 5 years we could trade it in or whatever, I mean,
Get
I don't know.
something,
Maybe
yeah.
the last 20 years, for all I know.
Yeah, what's that?
Get the new Cadillac.
And get the new one, yeah. Upgrade, yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is the housing production plan. And I don't know what we're reviewing or acting upon.
Okay, I'll speak to this since
Please do.
this is part of the process of approval of the Dayton Housing Production Plan, which is part of the 40B development programs, where if you don't have a housing production plan along with the minimum number of houses, it doesn't mean anything. You could have the number of affordables you need, but without an HPP. Anyway, this is the third year we've done it. We started in 2009, it's renewable every 5 years. So this one is our latest one, started in beginning 2019 February, which is, and I apologize for getting it to you guys late, but we just got it back from DHCD with their approval.
Okay, good.
So this has been through the process with the 40B committee for about the last 3 months, and with the assistance of Serpent. A lot of the changes are basically in demographics, which is about half of the plan. The other half is more or less recommendations and thoughts and ideas that have been formulated with the help of Serpent. It pretty much mirrors a lot of 2014 plan. Again, we just got it back from DHCD, so it's up to our board and the Board of Selectmen at this point now to either approve or disapprove. There are a few things in there that you may not think is right, but when they create these, they make them off the they're created from the 2010 census. So pretty much it's about 10 years behind. You'll read in there that there's 144 units, and technically, in reality, there's 153 units, because the Pines has been built out to a certain extent, and there is 9 to be added there. But, so the total that will be at 153. We're right around 5% or so right now of affordable units.
So we're basically going backwards from.
Yeah, even, we could be caught up in this year, we could be at 10%, but we're working off 2010 census numbers, so when the 2020 census comes out, it could put us behind again. So, I said, why don't we use current, we had all asked that, why we can't use current ones, but that's how they operate, so. What I'm looking for, I'll answer any questions I can, is that we act on this and is favorable, and we can move it along.
I'd like a little more time before we act on this, because there's an awful lot to read.
Most of it is boilerplate from previous years.
Right.
If you look at the,
Well, I looked at some of it, right, and I hadn't had time to look at it all, but, you know, what they're asking us to do here is, ease up on some of our regulations.
Yes.
Okay, that's what they're asking us to do here. Ease up on lot size requirements, proposed mixed-use development.
Yep.
Adoptive duplex development bylaw.
those are
Starter house non-conforming lots. And, you know, I would at least like to be afforded the time to go over this, and I know Serpent had done a lot of work presenting all this information. It would be nice maybe if they could come present it to us.
I agree with
Okay.
that 100%.
And I'm looking at these numbers, and I just looked at this briefly, okay? If you look at all the other surrounding communities, Dayton has already bent over backwards for development to allow 40Bs compared to other communities. We're doing our fair share to fill the 40B
Oh,
void.
there's no question about it.
Right, we're doing it, so why do you feel the need that we need to do more? I mean,
I'll tell you why.
anybody coming before us that wants to have a 40B, we're not saying, no, you can't. We're just saying, let's be fair and reasonable, because we're here to represent the residents of the town of Dayton, not the state and the Commonwealth and what these people are pushing on us. Townhouses, duplexes, low income, handicap housing. I haven't even got to the handicap part, but there's a stipulation in there about us needing to have so many handicap housing. You know, who's the state to say, town of Dayton, you better have X amount of handicap units?
Well, that didn't come from the state, that came out of the committee.
Right.
And, you know, it's just alternatives, options that are available to the town, and that's only a recommendation, you know, to the planning board or to the town. And not only would the planning board have to approve any such variation, the town would have to do it. So, this is all recommendations.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, the town of Dayton should be proud of
None
themselves.
none of it is binding.
Right, we should be proud of ourselves for allowing the affordable housing
Yeah, but the
that we
state
have.
is not, and that's,
Well, we're never gonna make them happy.
well, that
Why should we try?
might be so.
It's not our job. Our job here, we're elected by the people, right?
Tom,
The people,
I got a question.
the people want us to take care of them.
Doesn't DHCD give the town certain leeway because we have this plan? The housing production plan,
You have to have the housing production plan again, because even if you, let's suppose we don't approve this, and it gets delinquent and no longer enforced, and we get somebody that puts apartments in, and all of a sudden, we're at our 10%, but we still can't deny 40Bs because we don't have a housing production plan. This is just a reference, this is a guide, it is not, it is not
but they
a
have-
binding
it's not
They
binding
have-
document.
by any means.
They have other stuff in there, like 40Rs and all of that stuff in there. I attended the meeting at Serpad yesterday,
The lunch thing?
and, I'm sorry?
The lunch?
Yeah.
It wasn't much of a lunch.
Well, like the snack?
Look at this. Takes a lot to fill that up. In either case, the stuff that they presented was all well and good, and they're going, most schools are closing because they don't have enough kids, and the whole presentation is done, so I just raised my hand and I asked the question, is that what happens if we are on the opposite side of things, that we need more school because we're already overcrowded? Is there anything that the state has to help us out? I mean, you're putting out grants for this, grants for that, but I didn't hear anything.
No.
Oh, no, we don't have any of that. If you want grants or help on building something, we do have it, but you gotta do this, that, and the other thing, and that means putting in a whole mess of apartments, you know, in small lots, and that's not helping us. That's,
Yeah.
how much money you put out.
This is pretty much similar to wording since we've had, since 2014. If DHCD hadn't approved it, and again, I gotta stress, that it's only a guide, it's not binding, it's not anything. This needs to be completed by the end of February, so, again, nothing in there is enforceable.
No.
When you say completed, it just means voted by the two boards?
So what?
When you say completed, does
Approved.
that mean approved by the two boards? The selectmen and the planning board?
Yes,
Okay, so that's all we have, all the town has to do
that's
right
all that's
now.
left, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't our mixed-use zoning
We already have